This music always makes me happy, but today it comes with a tinge of melancholy because it's the last time we'll talk to Aaron Nagler on the Monday after a Packers game until September, I guess. Well, we'll count August too. But he joins us now.
I'm going to still call him every Monday.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Our conversations with Nags are sponsored by Miller Lite Orthopedic Associates Wisconsin. There is a difference in Rogers Behavioral Health. Nags, welcome to the Monday edition of Drew and KB.
Gentlemen, good to speak with you. Wish it was under better circumstances, but what a ride. What a ride.
Yeah, don't sound,
Green Bay Packers.
Don't sound so forlorn. I mean, we weren't supposed to be here, and we were.
But they were. That's the point, and that's what makes it so disappointing.
It was, you know what? Yeah. It was all dessert. That's what it was. It was just 2 weeks of dessert.
You are not incorrect, sir.
And the last dessert that they gave you might have been a little underdone.
A little tart. It was a little tart.
Tart.
No, not really tart. Sweet enough, but still, it was dessert.
I think we should give game balls to Bills Mafia and the Bills for making us feel better about our situation.
Holy cow!
24 hours later,
there's no such thing as a mafia.
I mean, you talk about reliving your pain. The fact that kick went wide right at a Bills game. Oh,
he kicked it left.
I mean, and you're trying desperately to get to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen, and you get that. Oh my! I mean, I get Packers fans. We've been through it, but
now
man, that's
imagine the Packers like back in the day in the Favre era. Like they let's say, the championship game's going to be in Lambeau. Here comes Dallas, and Dallas wins, and you're like, God, can't beat them anywhere.
Nope, that's going to be nope from me.
And though to a degree, there are some fans, Bills fans, who did not live through the Scott Norwood thing, so the pressure's off of him. It'd be like us going, remember that kick Chuck Mersine missed?
You know what? I'll bet there are plenty of people in your listening audience who absolutely do remember that.
Absolutely.
That's very true.
But they have new pain now.
Yeah, there's lots of new pain that's been built up. Calcify the old stuff.
Mm-hmm. Nags, not to pat ourselves on the back, but when we spoke about this game last week, we did say the Packers had to play almost perfect. If you get in the red zone, you better score.
You better take advantage of your opportunities. Yep.
Don't drop. I think we even said don't drop any interceptions. They dropped 2.
Drop 2 of them. Yep.
And yet there it was. And there's folks like we had a caller, one of our first callers today wanted to talk about the last interception. And Jordan Love should have tucked it and ran. And that's not the play I'm worried about.
No, but I mean, look, I totally get it, right? You're hoping that Jordan pulls out a moment there. Like it's that kind of special time where a minute, one time out, go do something special, kid. And of course, no, he didn't. But you know what he did do? He did something we saw a literal Hall of Fame quarterback do in an NFC Championship game when Brett threw across his body in the middle of the field. What did we talk about all year? Like people compare the stats to Aaron Rodgers. I've been saying he's a lot more like Favre than he is Aaron Rodgers, just because he is a bit of a gunslinger and he does have supreme confidence in his abilities. And I don't think that's a bad thing. He's admitted he needs to work on these end-of-game situations, and you saw it play out there in San Francisco. But, man, you cannot take away from everything the kid did this year. The way he improved, he was playing as well, if not better, than almost any quarterback in the league coming down the stretch of this season. I certainly didn't see that, and I'm insanely excited for the future going forward with Jordan Love at quarterback.
Well, and let's not forget that Brett Favre did it after 12 years in Green Bay.
Exactly.
Okay, this
Brett
is his
just
first time.
Pulled a Brett. I mean, this is right. Yes, this is his first year as a starter. These are things hopefully he'll learn from going forward, and that stuff he'll work on. But yeah, Drew, to your point, looking at that game, that's not even in top 5 of the plays that I'm lamenting going forward this offseason.
What I'm coming back to more than anything, yes, the early red zone trips coming up empty, 3 red zone trips, 6 points. Got to do better than that. Yep. What I'm coming back to more than anything is what we talked about all year, the defense. However, not what you think.
Right.
Because fourth quarter, those last 2 drives, like the 49ers, there was just no push. They were dead. And the short week got them. Kingsley Enagbari's injury got him.
Absence.
Because it was one guy short. That absence hurt him. But you could just tell there was just no threat. There was no push when they needed it most. No juice on that defensive line. That was so good for the rest of the game. No push from the front 7. And next, I think to me now, Joe Barry aside, they need some safeties. They need some guys in the back on defense that it's not a surprise
when they make a play.
Right. It should be more the standard to make a play. Like, hey, they made a play. That's awesome. Like, their lack of interceptions this year, their lack of pass breakups, just a lack of tenacity, or not tenacity, but competitive plays.
Yeah.
It's just
on the
glaring.
back end, 100%.
Glaring.
But now, see, that kind of marries in, though, with the philosophy on defense. And that last drive kind of epitomizes it, right? So, yes, you are spent, right? You can see those guys are gassed up front. Yet Joe calls, like, again and again, this passive, too high, basically let it keep it all in front of you, quote unquote. Well, that's fine. But the 49ers were more than happy to do exactly that. Okay, we'll keep it all in front of you as we march down the field, drain the clock, and then eventually get in the end zone. If there was ever a time to go against profile and send pressure after the quarterback and just go all out to try and knock Purdy off his perch, that was it. When you have this group that can't quite get the push that they were earlier in the game, drop those safeties down, send those linebackers, and if they bust one, fine. At least then you've got the ball back with some time to operate rather than allowing them to completely drain the clock as they go down to score.
That was the disheartening thing, because we've seen that movie before.
So many times.
They played afraid.
And like, the inevitability of it all was what made it so soul-crushing. The fact that as soon as the 49ers got the ball for that final drive, you knew what was going to happen. I knew what was going to happen. Everybody knew what was going to happen.
Yes. And therein lies the Joe Barry discussion. Like, you can look at the numbers, but to me, it's like the eye test. And there's no confidence, no swagger, no danger with that defense for 3 years.
For 3 years now. And here's what I keep coming back to. I understand. I mean, I try to understand the argument for keeping him around, right? The fact that, yes, they did improve towards the end of the year, but you're still looking, and Matt said it himself at the podium today, you're still looking for the same stuff you were looking for coming into this season, i.e. consistency. You can't go through these seasons having to right the ship, so to speak, on defense towards the end of the year every season. That has happened now 3 years in a row. At what point do you say, okay, we have to be a lot better coming out of the gate? And clearly Joe is not the guy to get us there, because he's had now 3 opportunities to do so. And every season we have to ramp up on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, with all the draft capital too.
Yeah,
with all the draft capital.
Who was the last great defensive coordinator? Fritz Shermer?
I mean, early Dom Capers. I'm always gonna give Dom his due. Those first 2 or 3 years, he was excellent. Yeah, he was excellent. Good. And then, yes, the philosophy that Ted had married with a really complicated scheme that Dom really didn't want to deviate from, that ended up, costing him. But yeah, probably Fritz is the last really outstanding defensive coordinator.
The last one.
No doubt.
Talking with Aaron Nagler, cheeseheadtv.com, the man who carries the G. The 49ers were 10 for 16 on third downs, and obviously the 2 big ones on that go-ahead drive.
Oh, yeah.
The missed tackles, Savage and Jonathan Owens both missed tackles that were just
the Savage miss on McCaffrey is absolute. The Kittle one was Owens.
Kittle. Yeah,
they're both bad, but Savage has McCaffrey dead to rights in the hole, limited to a significant game, 8 or 9 yard gain. But instead, we see what we've seen a lot from Savage: a complete whiff, and McCaffrey's off to the races for a touchdown. You can't have that. That's basically the play that got him benched last year in that Thursday nighter against Tennessee. They've got to be better on the back end. They have to.
Yeah, that to me is like, that's job one, because you bring it back. Everybody, you don't need tight ends or wide receivers anymore.
The front looks good. The defensive front, you can work with what they've got, and they'll probably add to it this offseason. But the back end needs a complete.
And overhaul. I might need a replacement for Devondre Campbell, because
I think there's a good chance that happens. They've got a pretty easy way to get out of his contract this offseason. I would be surprised if he's back. I mean, down the stretch, you just saw, and I know he's battling stuff, but everybody is. Yeah. And you look at just his comparison to his first year in Green Bay when he was an all-pro, right? And that's why you got excited about him. But man, that burst, the sideline to sideline ability, the playmaking ability, it's just not there. They need better across from Quay Walker.
The Barrister says, Drew, if you fire Barry, who are you going to get? Another fired defensive coordinator. Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're bad.
I mean,
I'm old enough to remember when the Packers hired a head coach who had been the offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, who had the worst offense in the league under his tutelage. And that man came in and won like 80% of his games in a Super Bowl. So
everybody's been fired at some point in the NFL. There's zero doubt about that.
But to Barrister's question, like, I'd have Wink Martindale on the phone.
Yeah, the wink thing would be fun. I don't know how realistic that is. I mean, obviously, a lot of it is about who guys know or are recommended,
Yes.
who they've kind of encountered in their time in the league. Although not always, but more often than not. I don't know how much that might play into. Although I will say, Matt really hadn't worked with Bisaccia before Rich ended up in Green Bay. So yeah, I think that's a possibility. But I also think that if he were to move on from Barry, he'll cast a pretty wide net.
I would say yes. There's people saying like Al Harris, Marquand Manuel, guys like that.
Yeah, I know. Marquand Manuel was up for the Jaguars job, the DC job. He didn't end up getting it. I know there was reports about them hiring someone else today. So he's with the Jets, and I think he obviously knows Green Bay. That'd be an interesting interview anyway. And yeah, the Al Harris thing, I'm totally intrigued by that. I have no idea. Al's been coaching now for a long time. We obviously all remember him from his playing days, but he's been around some really successful defenses and some really successful players. He himself was a very successful player.
And
I'd love to see him brought in for an interview. I'd love that.
Lovey Smith, Leslie Frazier, two former coaches in the division, and Rod Marinelli.
I tell you what. Okay. Curse a pox on your house for even mentioning Rod Marinelli. But I'll tell you what. I would love just Lovey Smith coming in for an interview, just to watch the Bears fans burn to the ground. That would be amazing.
That'd be worth it.
Absolutely.
That'd be worth it. Anything else jump out at you, Nags? I mean, obviously it's like it was tantalizing how close they came to pull it. And the rain was a factor. The rust for the 49ers was clearly a factor. How do you think that's going to wear on them? How do you think they're going to do against Detroit? That should be a Donnybrook.
It really should. I'm fascinated to see how Detroit approaches that 49ers defense, because I think Matt put out a couple of really nice blueprints for them, especially in the running game. Because I do think most people, when you look at the 49ers and their defense and how talented they are and how athletic they are, you think, okay, you want to, as much as you would love to get outside on them, like, oh, well, don't do that because Warner and company are so good sideline to sideline. But man, Matt had a bunch of pin pull running plays for Aaron Jones that busted big, including that 53-yarder. There's something there. And you start getting Gibbs, that Lions rookie running back, going on some of that, like, look out. You can bet, Shanahan and company are going to be like, we need to look at this, because Matt clearly found a really effective way of getting outside on that defense with the running back.
I also think Equanimous' brother Amon-Ra is going to have a pretty big day too.
He's legit, man. The way he gets through contact, he is fun to watch. He is fun to watch, no doubt.
That should be a really good matchup, and that's the matchup. Like with short of the Packers playing, that's the matchup I want to see. It's
just I would agree.
It's just two really. I mean, it's interesting to watch the 49ers come off the rest period that you were talking about. They did kind of find their equilibrium down the stretch against the Packers, but the Lions, man, they're battle tested. They're a team that's been playing week in and week out, and I think they're ready to punch the 49ers in the mouth. I'm excited for that game.
It's part of the game, but you have to factor in the 49ers were also without Debo.
Yeah.
And he's a big part of their game plan.
Big time. I mean, look, he hit that first catch that he got, like 15-yarders just from a swing pass on the perimeter there. Yeah, he's a significant talent. We'll see if he's available to go against the Lions, but yeah, it's going to be a good game. There's no doubt. And look, I know I've already taken all sorts of grief for this online, but I don't care. I'm excited for the Lions. They were bad for so long, right? I mean, decades and decades. And I, as a young man in the 80s, remember what that feels like to think my team is never, ever, ever going to be playing in the postseason, let alone the chance to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, I remember how insane I went when the Packers did finally get to the Super Bowl. So I'm sure that I know for a fact, I know people who are lifelong Lions fans who are absolutely beside themselves for this opportunity. So I'm 100%
Lions. And in that game next week, the prediction for Christian McCaffrey, I can only sum up in the words of Clubber Lang. Pain. Oh, will they take it to him?
Pain. Yeah, they will. They will.
So, and without Debo, that was a factor. They didn't get scorched.
The way we thought they would. A lot of people thought they would.
Bosa didn't hurt him. The O-line held up. Bosa
I'll tell you what really hurt them was Zach Tom going out. That Tom injury, kind of not a headline, but
Offense was never the same.
A major factor, especially in that fourth quarter. Jordan kept getting off the spot because of instant pressure, 4-man pressure, which meant they could cover on the back end. Bunch of bad throws from Jordan. Not a great fourth quarter, but a major part of that was the fact that, Zach wasn't in there. The line was a lot leakier than it had been for most of the game. I think that really contributed to stuff.
Last thing on the way out, Nags, the Anders Carlson thing, they'll bring in somebody for camp. He'll have competition, whatever.
Yeah, right.
But
I just saw a picture of the hold.
I was going to say the snap
horrible
in the rain. The snap was not good.
Not great. Not great at all.
Lucky he got that above the center.
They might need a new long snapper more than they need a new kicker.
It's possible. I think everything will be looked at. There's no doubt about it. But here's the thing. Like, we've now lived with the heartache, right? He's missed all these kicks, including that very important one. They're not going to cut him. Like, we'll bring him in competition. But the whole point of drafting and developing is the development part, right? And that's what this year was about. Yeah, I'm with you. I think he'll most likely be here next year and hopefully continue to improve because –
tell that to Brett Conway.
Brutal, but that's the thing. Like, what happened with his older brother, right? Like, he missed a kick in the playoffs and was instantly cut by Zimmer. Like, do you want the Packers to operate like the Vikings? No. Like, I fully expect them to bring him back. And
there were a couple years they could have given up on Mason Crosby and missed several years of high-value success.
Zero question. It's just who they are. It's how they operate. Right. It's frustrating, but it usually ends up paying off.
Nags, great run today. Thank you. Continue to carry the G, and we will talk to you Friday as we're closer to the next slate of games. We'll be over this. The sting will have gone away by then. More of it will have gone away.
Looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Mm-hmm. All right, bud.
Go Pack.